Hey guys, Brian Hilliard here, author of the best-selling book, Networking Like a Pro. And I got to tell you, I am fired up because you guys are in for a treat. We've got Neusa Catoja here with us. She is a transformational coach and a popular speaker out in the UK. And Neusa, I am just really fired up because I know we've got some good stuff to talk about. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me, Brian. I'm really
Awesome,
excited for
awesome.
today.
Awesome. Well, listen, one of the things that we've talked about, we've obviously, we're friends, we've done, some different stuff and have a chance to get to know each other. We met actually on LinkedIn. And one of the things that really attracted me to one of the things that you do is this idea of self-love. Right. And you talk about this idea of how, kind of like your signature course, if you will, is how you can stop being everything to everyone and still be at peace with yourself. And one of the things that I really got my attention was this concept of where you were saying that self-love is actually not selfish. Talk to us about that and maybe unpack that a little bit if you don't mind.
Well, every time I come across someone and I talk about, self-love or, when I say to people that I'm like, oh, I'm just taking time for myself, just giving myself the love that I deserve, straight away I get, especially women that are much older, will be like, when are you going to do that? When there's any time for that? And automatically they have this thing about it being selfish and feeling guilty about doing something for themselves. Because some people seem to think that self-love is buying yourself flowers, is taking yourself to the movies, is doing things for yourself. There's a part of it that's self-love, but self-love is also self-care. Self-love is sleeping properly. Self-love is taking care of your health. Self-love is saying positive things about yourself. Self-love is basically what you would give to someone else, you're giving to yourself. So I get people to turn that whole idea of self-love being selfish to where most people nowadays are selfless, right? Selfless means they care more about others than they do for themselves. And what I teach them is that remove the word selfish, replace it with selfless, but instead of being selfish by doing more for others, turn it into yourself. Be more selfless to you. And when I talk to them about it, it makes them realize, oh, you're right, I do things for myself. And that's not selfish. I do buy myself a dress. I do put on my makeup. I do my hair. All of that is self-care. So if that's selfish, that means you're being selfish every single day, right? So
Right.
for me, there's no such thing. Selfish is like taking something, not sharing it with other people, not telling other people about something that's really good, keeping it all to yourself. That's being selfish. But when you're taking care of yourself, self-love, that means you're giving yourself something that you don't need anyone else to give you. And when they do give it to you, it's a bonus because you already know how to love yourself. Because if you don't know how to truly love yourself, how can you expect someone else to do it? Or how can you expect yourself to teach someone else?
And let me stop you there for a
Yeah.
second because that's a great point. I think a lot of times, people as coaches, we have a conversation. Obviously, we're talking about branding and growing your coaching practice, right? That's what people are listening for. That's what I do. I talk about getting out to a wider audience and impacting more lives. And
Yes.
one of the points that I think you just made, and I'd love to talk about it some more, is this idea that I talk about is if you want to get more, you need to be more first. Okay. I was talking about this with somebody, I think yesterday, actually. And the idea is that as a coach, if you want to attract more people who will work with you as a coach, and I think you would agree with this, you have to be coming from a place of abundance versus deficit. There needs to be a place of abundance versus scarcity, abundance versus lack, abundance versus, all these other things. And I think what I'm hearing you say is that when you're getting into a self-love conversation as a coach, you could actually make the argument that you're helping your business because you're helping yourself be capable of helping others.
Right. Very much so. Because, for example, you talked about abundance. If I'm wanting to get more clients, but I don't invest in myself because self-love is also a form of investing, right? If you're going to invest in yourself, that means you're saying, I am worthy of investing in myself. I value myself enough to invest in myself. But then you're a coach or, you're a woman in business or a man in business, and you're trying to attract all of these clients, but you yourself is not investing in yourself. How do you expect them to invest in you? You're not going to get any clients. And energy attracts energy. So if my energy is very, very low, I'm not getting money, because money is energy. I'm not going to get any money if my energy is low, right? So how can I lift someone else's energy to make them realize that they're valuable enough to invest in themselves and to invest in a program with me if I'm not leading by example, if I'm not doing that for myself? You can't. That's why a
I
lot of
love that.
businesses, that's probably why, that's not probably, but that's why a lot of businesses don't do well, because you are attracting clients, but then you're counting your pennies and you're not investing in
Right.
yourself.
Right.
Because a business can't sustain yourself if you're broken, right? If you're broken, you're depressed, you're low, your self-esteem is low, your anxiety, it's all gonna show, and you're gonna feel like a failure because you don't feel high enough or energized enough to be able to pick up and sustain a business. So everything starts with self, and everything starts with loving, investing, taking care, nurturing and caring for yourself before you can even birth a business and look after a business, right? So that's how I would say I
I
would define
love
everything.
I
Yeah.
love that, and we were talking, and you brought this point up, and I want to transition to another one. You brought up the word indulgence. I think a lot of people, they equate, and I was writing this down here, they equate self-love with indulgence, right?
Mm.
They equate self-love with, I'm going to go, to the Mojave Beach, or it's actually, I think it's a desert, but I'm going to go to, Myrtle Beach, and I'm going to go to, this place here, or I'm going to do a 3-week Hawaii vacation, which, or something like that. And what you're saying is it doesn't have to be like that. Give us some ideas on how you would be able to talk about, my girlfriend talks about filling your cup, and this notion, Deb, you obviously know her, filling your cup, and this idea of being able to have people, fill their cup and be able to move forward. Give us some ideas on how, with your clients and with your folks, how do you advise them to kind of start moving forward and feel like that cup can be filled without the guilt?
Right. The first thing I'll say, especially if they're a mother, or even if they're in a relationship, or even if they care of their parents, because that's the trend nowadays, isn't it? They looking after someone else. Someone is always looking after someone else. Someone is always caring for someone else. And the thing that I put to them is, right, especially when I say I don't have time to do that. The thing that I say is, if you're looking after this particular person, your child, your mom, your partner, and you're doing every thing for them, if you're not looking after yourself and you break down, you can't help them.
Right.
For example, if you're on an aeroplane and it is turbulent, what do? Do they say, get your mask and put it onto your child? No, they say, get your mask, save yourself to be able to save others. So I say to them, in order for you, you're saying you don't have time, you can't relax, you're not sleeping, you've got all of these things to do, you can't stop because otherwise it's selfish. Really and truly, if you don't fill up your cup, and I do use that quite a lot, so the same as Debbie, I use that a lot. If you don't fill up your cup, how can you pour it onto someone else? If your cup is empty, right. If you're not sleeping, you're empty. If you're not eating, you're empty. It's like a car. You cannot drive a car unless you fill up the tank, right?
Right.
And then you can drive around and do everything that you need to. So I just say to my clients, and it starts with what you're saying to yourself. The first thing that we start with is your thoughts and your language. Oh, I'm not enough. I'm not good enough. I can't do this. I can't relax. All of that is negative self-limiting beliefs. So I focus on that first. How do we enable you to believe, to think, and say, you know what? I'm worthy of having 10 minutes for myself. We start very, very small. I'm worthy of spending 10 minutes just to meditate. I'm worthy of just going out there to walk in nature. Like you said, self-love doesn't have to be like, right, I'm going to book myself on a plane ticket. I'm going to go and take 2 weeks out. We'd all love to do it. But if you go with the same mindset and it's negative, you're going to have a crappy time, and you're going to feel even more anxious coming back. So self-love starts from within, wherever you are, in your own bedroom, taking those little steps so that when you fall, and you've got the money coming in, you feel abundant, you feel amazing, then you can take yourself on holiday and enjoy it from a better mindset.
And you know what I have found too, personally, you tell me if you found this as well. I have found, especially people in business, they have a little bit of a when I get to, then I will do mindset, which is when I get to, you fill in the blank. Well, when I get, I don't know, all these ducks in a row, or when I get this deal. I mean, there's definitely times like I've been like, okay, listen, I need to get another client and then we can, you know, redo the outside, or I need to pick up another couple of clients and then we can redo the fence. Like I've said it that way. So that's totally fine because it's more of like a goal statement.
Yeah.
But like where people get into trouble is they're like, they almost like put themselves in this, like, you know how we've got a couple of dogs, Baxter and Nero, and we actually have a physical fence, but you see people who have like an invisible fence, right? And the dog doesn't go because they feel like they're going to be zapped. And I think a lot of people almost approach their lives like that. They're like, well, when I do, I can't, it's like the self-inflicted martyrdom. I can't do this because of that. When I get to this, then I can do that. And it's like that, to your point, I would use the word is actually counterproductive for people in their practice. It's counterproductive for people in their business. And it's counterproductive to just being successful overall.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, I live in a state of abundance all the time. That money's flowing to me effortlessly. I say that to myself all the time. The evidence may not be there, but the actions that I'm taking and the mindset that I have and the goal that I have on my goal board and my vision board is already there. I already envision it every single day. It just has to match. And the reason why it hasn't matched, when we look at why is it that I'm not getting X amount of clients, why is it that I'm not making X amount of, is because there's something in that process that you need to master. So for example, for me, the process for me was the sales process.
Right.
Process. And also because when I have my discovery calls, and you did say this to me, Brian, was your discovery calls are too long, because it will be half an hour and 45 minutes to almost an hour. I'm still on this discovery call. And I've minimized it down to 20 minutes because I can say what I need to say within 20 minutes and move into the next. And once I've got my message right, and that was another thing that was, you know, a bit all over the place, because I've been on social media for the last 2.5 years and I've done so many different things, but I still had some people saying, but what exactly do you do now? So you're an author, you're a poet, you're speaking, you come to all these business events, but what do you actually do? You know, you also help people that have issues with body perfection. So what do you do? So for me, I had to get my message clear as well. The branding, the message clear in terms of what I want to say. Now I know what I'm clear. I've mastered that. Now I've got the program. I've mastered the program. Like you said, how to stop being everything to everyone and be at peace with myself. I've got the service. I've got the discovery call down to 20 minutes. All I need to do now is talk about the program now. And then just last week, I launched my website, which I didn't have again. And again, nothing has to be perfect for you to start a business. I started my business, no website. Everything's coming together now because I've got those little things that had the issues, you know, the branding, the wording, got that, you know, we worked together on that. And then I've now got the website came together. So as soon as I've had my discovery call, I go, right, I'm going to send you my link to my website. Go and have a read. Once you're ready, click on a pay button. My pay button wasn't there before. People have to pay me in my bank account. That's there. So all of that is sorted. So now what's the next thing as to the reason why I'm not getting the money that I said I want to get by the end of this month? My sales process. What worked before, looking at my data, which I now have, the numbers of my conversion rates, right? I'm getting a bit more techie, looking at my conversion rates and realizing that the webinars that I did, I had 14 people, I was able to get 7 clients. So my conversion rate is really good. So all these little things that I wasn't paying attention to, but I was busy being everything to everyone, even though I do that to my clients now, I realized that I can only focus on what I can focus on and then invest in my business. Like I invested in my business for someone to put my course program together. I'm doing all the filming and all the content. I've got someone specifically put it in the back office. I had to invest in that. So for me to get to my goal, if there's reasons why I haven't, is because there's something in there that needs refining, that needs a little bit of self-care and a bit of self-love.
Right.
Once I've
Right.
done that, it's working. So I
That,
always have, and this is when I talk to clients, I always have this thing, and I talk to them and I say, look, if you're not where you need to be, is because it's all to do with your value and your self-worth. And then I ask them the question, when was the last time you bought something? They
right.
easily say, oh, I bought my daughter this, and I bought my partner this, and I bought my mum this. What about you? Oh, I never spend time on myself. Lack of
Right.
self-worth, lack of
Right.
value. So then I
Right.
work on that. And when we work on it and I realize I really need this, they find the money. They find the money.
Yeah. And we were talking about that beforehand. Tell us a little bit about, because these might be the first time people have heard about you. Tell us a little bit about, I know you had a story with one of your clients who actually was going down that exact road. So just
Mm,
for our listeners here, you might be thinking, boy, you know what, this is making like a lot of sense. I'm having this, and this challenge. Tell us a little bit about, if you don't mind, the story of your client that you were working with, and actually continue, not have, but are continuing to work with.
mm.
Give us a feel for what her situation was, and then how obviously she's made some strides.
Yeah, I'm also going to give you an example of how we came together. When we first met, I won't name her name. When we first met, I was doing one-to-one packages. And at the time, she hadn't started a business. Unfortunately, she said she couldn't work with me financially. That's fine. We left it. Then she started a business with another group. She started an amazing business. And knowing what I do, because I still worked as a mentor as part of this organization while she was starting a business, but starting a business in this organization was free. So obviously she could invest in that. So she did that. And I mentored her and a few of the other ladies. As soon as she launched her business, we all think, oh, I've launched my business. It's amazing. You're putting things out there. Everyone's looking at it thinking, oh, she's doing amazing. That's what people think straight away. When you launch the business, people think, she's got it all together or he's got it all together, everything's fine. But that's not the reality. The
Right.
reality is she came
Right.
to me a few months back, she had issues with herself. She started a business, the issues are still there. So what
Right.
happened? She came to me again. This time I had the perfect program, which, it fitted her financial budget. She still had to stretch herself a little bit. But this
Right.
time around, she needed it. She needed to stop being everything to everyone. She
Right.
took on a program. She was actually one of the ladies that I gave them installment plans. She was one of the ladies that picked the highest installment plan because she really wanted it. She didn't think about the fact that money is an issue to her at all because we're going through challenging times right now. So it can be quite tricky for some people to spend money. She didn't, but her problems needed to be addressed because otherwise she wasn't going to be able to move forward with her business. And she's had a business before that she believed failed. So she doesn't want to repeat the same mistakes. And she knows I'm able to guide her. So within the first week of her doing a program, and we also have one-to-ones as well, because you did suggest to me, as well as doing it online, why don't you offer a couple of one-to-ones? And that's been very beneficial because I get to know the person's individual pain and
That's right.
tailor-made program. So
Right.
I've been doing that with her. She's also been
I
doing the
love
online
that. Yeah.
class. Yeah, it's been amazing. And within the first week, I tell them all to give us testimonials just to see how it's going. It also encourages people, because we do this on a private Facebook group, to encourage the others that may be behind on the course to catch up. And, maybe they may have similar issues. And one of her testimonies in the first week was, I feel so much better just by doing the 2 exercises they explained in the first week. I'm now sleeping better. Doing the brain dump just before I go to bed. The brain dump is one of the things I teach them. I feel better. I'm meditating, and I went back to exercising, which is something I couldn't even do for months. I'm not 100% there yet, but I'm taking the small steps. That was exactly word for word what she said. So now she's on that path. So it's like whatever it is that's bombarded your mind is the everything, is the overwhelm and the anxiety. When you start to work on that and get it out onto paper, you start to feel lighter. And she started to feel light by the first week. By the second week, it's like everything is relating to her. She's taking her time and working through it. Because when we go on this journey of helping ourselves, or journey of self-love or self-discovery, or just working on yourself, you're going to have so many different, how can I put it, outside things that are going to come your way. Whilst you're working with yourself, it almost seems like more things are coming at me that I'm not in control of. So this is happening to this particular client of mine. However, she's staying grounded by continuing to work on herself, because she's not in control of what's going on around her. As long as she's focusing on herself, she's better equipped to manage her emotions. And that's the thing with my program, is that it helps you to be able to manage your emotions in a better state of mind, clearer mind, more peaceful and calmer, really. So yeah, so she's getting really good results. I'm so pleased.
And I love that, you know, you made several good points there, like the different people having small things coming at them, right? It's the small things that are coming at people that can create a degree of almost like reactions, you know what I mean? Because what happens is you go about, you're trying to do what you want to do, presumably, you get up. And then you have all of these smaller things that are a function not of what you want, but rather what maybe other people want. And you know, one of the things that you mentioned earlier was that when I said earlier, when we talked before the show, we were talking about how, you know, people really feel like they are, if they're running into this, I call it the push, push, push. You know, they're constantly going, they're constantly running, you know, they're constantly doing some of these things. What are some, you know, things that people can do if they're running into always on the go, not relaxing, maybe not feeling good enough, maybe some slight, I call it low grade anxiety, kind of like low grade radiation at Chernobyl, has a similar effect. Like, you know, what are some things that people, if they were listening and they're like, boy, you know what, I do have trouble sleeping, I just didn't think it was this before. What would you, maybe one or two points that you could give to people who are listening?
Especially people say, I've got so many things going on in my mind, I don't know what to do first, I'm overwhelmed.
Right.
As soon as I hear that, the first thing I suggest to them is do a brain dump. I absolutely
Okay.
buy a brain dump. And basically a brain dump is literally writing down everything that's causing you, that you're thinking about, on paper before you go to bed. Get it all out, because you'll be
Okay.
amazed at how much comes out. So much comes out. Because you don't want to go to bed thinking about all of these things, because you're going to dream them, or it's
Right.
not, your mind is racing, right? Because it's got all of these things. You're like a computer virus that's been infected. When you start to write them down, it starts to make sense just how much is in your head. But then once you've done that, don't go to sleep thinking, okay, what now? Then you start to write down all the things that you do want, or positive affirmations, just saying, I'm going to have an amazing night's sleep today. Tomorrow is going to be even better. Today, and it's almost like I love scripting, because I've gotten into that quite a lot. Is scripting how you want your day to go, how you want your sleep to go, and you're calming your mind, because you're saying, I'm going to have a good sleep today. Tomorrow's going to be even better. I already know what I have to do. So today I'm just going to focus. It may not work the first time, but you have to keep on consistently do it. I do it sometimes when I've got X amount of things to do. The next thing that I do, once you've done a brain dump, you're probably going to have loads of lists of tasks to do. Highlight the to-do tasks and just pick 3 for the next day. Write them on a to-do list. Just say, right, I've got 3 things to do. But then you may not be able to get through all 3 of them. Give yourself a week to get through all 3 of them. Whenever I say that to my clients, they're like, oh, that's so much more manageable. And I had to do it myself. Because
Let me interject just for one
yeah.
second, because you're preaching to the choir. I call that my weekly. I have a weekly to-do list, and you know, I first saw about that with Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I think it's like number 3 or 4. He talks about look at your week, not your day. And the real quick story, and then I'll let you get right back to it. The quick story where I finally adopted that for me was I was sick. I wasn't feeling well. It's about 2 years ago, 3 years ago, maybe 2 years. I had like allergy issues, or I forgot what it was, but I was sick. And I remember I was getting back into work, but I only had like a limited amount of energy. So I remember thinking to myself, okay, I can only do like 2 or 3 things. What are they going to be? So what I did was I wrote them down on a like a little junior legal pad. Okay. And I went in and I'm like, okay. And I knocked those things out in like 2 or 3 hours. And then I was done. Like there was no more energy. I had to go, not necessarily take a nap, but I'm watching, you know, Netflix. And then the next week I liked it so much. I was like, well, let me just write down I was in the habit. I'm like, let me just write down the 2 or 3. And instead of 2 or 3 things, I put down like 6 or 7 because I had the whole week. Right. And I was like, let me just make sure that I do that. And I have not stopped doing that. I love that. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but boy, is that preaching to the choir. I love that.
Thank you. And the funny thing is, I started listening to 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, but I haven't gotten to that part yet. I'm still in the introduction. So whatever it is that I just mentioned is what I had to begin to do. Because I remember when we first connected, Brian, and I had the whiteboard. I tried to do the whiteboard of writing down all these goals that I have. And I looked at this whiteboard and it's just like, oh my God, there's so many goals, so many things to do. Where am I going to start next? And I stripped it right down. I said, no, that's too much. So I put the month and I put 3 tasks in that month that I want to do. 3 tasks in 1 month. I can achieve those. Obviously, within each task, I'm going to have different things that I can break down. But it's there. And then I thought, I've got all of these things to do. I need it to, I'm looking at it as I'm talking, I need it to make me feel better, not just to say I've got all of these things to achieve. So right next to it, I put achievements for the month before. And I put all the things that I achieved the month before, and it makes me look at, you know what, I may be taking my time in doing these goals, but look how much I achieved last month. I'm going to read a couple of them. I've sold 191 books. I got 8 new clients. I started a new program. I got an award. Just by looking at all those things that I've done, makes me feel like, right, I'm doing really well. This place is really good.
And you know what? Just to interject real quick again, you know what? You just made me think of it just now. And you correct me if you think this is off base, but it's almost like the people who are trying to be everything to everyone are back to deficit, lack, and catching up. Right. Versus what I hear you talking about is a reframing conversation, by the way. I also hear a programming your consciousness conversation going on here, subconsciousness going on here. But I hear mostly a reframing, which is, hey, listen, I've already done some of this good stuff. I don't necessarily, because the false premise in all of this is that everything needs to be done.
And it doesn't.
So, right. And what I'm hearing you say,
I don't have to do this stuff. I can do.
I can, or I cannot. Yeah. But what I'm hearing you say is you're working with your clients and you're like, listen, the reason you're having a hard time sleeping is because you're doing this, this, and this. The reason you're having a hard time relaxing is because of the same this, this, and this. So here's what you're going to want to do. What I heard you say is, get that stuff out of your head. So that's the brain dump. I love that. That's a great start. But then you took it a step further. You're like, get it out of your head and then have it in a place where you can start thinking about what you want to be able to do for the next either day, or you're talking about a week or a month. Totally fine. Then you're getting into, all right, well, let's program myself. This is the program part, to have a good night's rest, to feel good enough. Okay. Yeah. So that at the end of the day, the net is, I feel worthy. I feel accomplished. You know, you read about this in the Bible, and they talk about how light and dark cannot coexist. Okay, you're either it's just you're either for the light, which I call the right, or you're not. And there's no negotiating. There's no doing this while doing that. You're either this or you're that. And I think the same thing is true. The same concept. At least I'm hearing you say, you can't have a feeling of unworthiness and a sense of accomplishment. You can't have a feeling of anxiety and a feeling of self-worth. You can't have a sense of neglect and scarcity and lack and filling your cup. So what I'm hearing you say is you're really going out there and giving these ladies, most of them are women, and that's fine. Some of them are men, I'm sure, but you're giving these ladies and equipping them on how they can better see themselves and better relate.
Yes. And to cheer themselves on, really cheer themselves on. because, I had a client yesterday, the one that's sleeping a lot better now. And I said, you just launched your business. Did someone say, well done? She said, a couple of people did. Okay. But the people that you wanted to didn't. And she said, no. And I said, okay, are you doing that to yourself? Are you cheering yourself on? And she said, no. I said, so how do you expect them to cheer you on?
Right. That's a great one, Nelsa. Now I'll tell you, for me, this is kind of a funny story. I don't really tell it very often, but like when I used to be like that, I used to be like, oh well, I don't do that. Every time I get something good, like a client, I do a chest bump with Nero. Nero's like small dog. So I'll chest bump, which is hard. It's easier with Baxter. But, I'll chest bump the dog. I'll do like a little thing. And I will tell you this, one of the points that I kind of little rule that I came up with myself, this was a while back, was you don't get upset at yourself on the day that you signed a client.
No.
You don't worry about money. You don't get upset. I try not to even get mad. I actually had a day yesterday. I picked up a client, which was nice. It was there was like 3 things that happened. Ordered Instacart. They decided to leave the groceries outside instead of calling. It was out for 35 minutes.
Oh, wow.
And we had to throw away all the refrigerated items down here in the South.
Oh.
I know you can, appreciate this. It's like, I don't know what the Celsius equivalent is, probably like 20 degrees, but it's like 80 degrees down here, Fahrenheit. You can't leave milk out for 20 minutes, not even 10. So, so I had some challenge, but I worked through that. But I love how you're equipping these ladies to be able to do this. We could talk about this all day. Tell these guys where they can find you, either on your newly minted website or LinkedIn. Where can they find you? Because this was a really good conversation.
Right. Thank you. So I am everywhere. So my first name is Neusa, surname's Catoja, Catoja. You can find me on Facebook. You can also find me on Instagram, which is free to embrace me. You can see it here, but it's free, number 2, embrace me. That's on Instagram. I also have another Instagram page called I Am Neusa Catoja, which talks about my book, my international speaking, all the interviews that I have are posted on there. As we free to embrace me is about the coaching that I do, the 2 different services. I do one-to-ones and I do the group coaching. And what else? Oh yeah, and I've just launched my course website. It's got all my services on there, and it's called Free to Embrace Me -member vault, as in VAULT, member vault. So yeah, that's where you can find me. I'm everywhere. You can't miss me.
That is awesome. Well, my name is Brian. That is Nelsa over there. And this was really, really awesome. Thank you so much for stopping by, Nelsa. We really, really appreciate it. You take care.
Thank you.